Booster.
Go.
Retro.
Go.
Vital.
We're go fly.
Guidance.
Guidance, go.
Launch control, this is Houston. We are go for launch.
I feel the need for speed.
You gotta ask yourself a question. Do I feel lucky? Well, do you, punk?
Join us or die.
And welcome to Mark Groupie Outdoors, the podcast. Welcome back. I am your host, Mark Groupie. We're here with in studio with Millennial. Say hello, Millennial.
It is I,
It is you,
the Millennial,
the Millennial.
the
Ryer
infamous Millennial.
behind the mic and the keyboards. Ryer playing the keyboards. And today we have a guest in studio today, Dennis Hayre from Dennis Hayre Kennels, and we're going to talk about what to be doing during the off season. Before we get into that, Ryer, why don't you tell people how they can find us?
Well, Mark,
Not this again.
I have to make it memorable every time.
The problem is it's not memorable. It's forgettable. It's very forgettable.
It's going to be memorable. I'm forcing people to remember it.
Right now, if I had one of those snooze, those little buttons that I could press and it would make a snooze sound when he's talking, yeah, I'd do that. So go ahead. Please go ahead.
Well, I had this all planned out. Oh. He actually snores like that. I get no sleep on elk hunts. I had this all planned out, but you didn't walk into my trap. You were supposed to say, well, where can I find them? And I was going to say the same place all your glasses are, but
scattered all about the United States.
Yeah, there's probably a pair everywhere we've gone hunting.
Yeah, I probably have a pair of glasses I'm sure in New Mexico, Idaho, Wyoming, Montana, New York, and besides a gross of them scattered
and probably
through California.
300 on the ranch.
Yeah.
But other than those places, you can also find us online. We've got a website, markgroupieoutdoors.com. We've got Facebook, Instagram, and a YouTube channel, Mark Groupie Outdoors. That's GRUPE. We're on iTunes, Stitcher, wherever your favorite podcasts are sold, and in and around California and other places.
So there's no excuse not to find us.
None at all.
Well, it's speaking of finding things, now it'll be about time to start finding pigs and turkey. It's getting towards that time of year, so we'll be hunting those down. We just finished a bitchin' video. Would we call that a bitchin' video?
It's pretty groovy, man.
We finished a groovy video on transition to some heavier archery tackle. So if any of you get a chance to check out our past video, we got a good one up there for you. And we're working on our snow goose video with Scott Feist, and that's going to be a lot of fun and entertaining. So with no further ado, today in studio we have Dennis Hayre, Dennis Hayre Kennels, and he's been a long-time hunting dog trainer, hunt test dog trainer, run field trials, kind of run all the above when it comes to the retrieving breeds. Welcome to the show, Dennis.
Thanks. It's great to be here.
Great to have you here. Well, our duck season's over, and are people bringing back their dogs, or is that not quite yet?
Not quite yet. Usually they wait till about August or maybe October 1st.
Yeah, they didn't ruin them enough during the off season,
Exactly.
so they need the rest of the spring and summer to fix them for you. Huh?
Exactly.
Well, for the people that are hunting their dogs, and we got a long off season, and it is for the average person who likes to do things with their self with them. We've got February till next October to do stuff. Is that too much time for the average person just to put concentrated training? Should they just do more of a maintenance thing and then kind of maybe pick things up at the end, or should they ramp it up early and then taper off at the end, or what should a person with this much time now in the off season? What's a good program, do you think?
A lot depends on if the guy enjoys the process. Like if he enjoys going out and working his dog, has the time to do it. Some guys can go out a half hour every day and actually do a lot of stuff that's even going to progress the dog. Other people have a lot of stuff going on, got a family, got the kids doing their thing. Time is a problem. So it may be a once or twice a week thing just to maintain some even basic obedience. But the more they do, obviously the better the dog's going to get. Most guys they just want to maintain it where the dog was. A few guys want to take it to the next level, but probably the majority of my hunting dog clients just bring the dog back to tune him up again before the season begins and almost do nothing with the dog. So it kind of just depends on the person's lifestyle and what kind of time they have to put into it, and if they enjoy the process.
Now, what of your hunting dog people, what percentage of those would you say really know what a handling dog is, and what percentage of them are just go out and shag the bird and get it back close to me kind of people?
Well, that's a good question, actually. And I guess it depends on what the definition, how we define handling. As we define handling for a hunt test or a field trial dog, obviously much more precision, much more sophisticated, where maybe a hunting dog, the handling that they're going to do, as we were talking about a little bit ago, it's basically about getting the dog out close to it, getting it downwind, and letting it hunt it up. But even if you have a hunting dog that can take a line a little bit, stop on a whistle, go back, say 100 yards, get downwind of the bird, and then hunt them up, most guys are going to take that. That would not suffice, obviously, for a hunt test or a field trial dog. That's why I say to have it defined, because if you're going to run a hunt test or a field trial and you run a blind retrieve like that, or it's not going to cut it. But practically speaking, for a hunting dog, that's probably the best way to do it, because a lot of times you're not going to be able to see the dog to give him the precise cast, and you're going to have to let the dog's instincts take over. But that has its negative effects, because the dog learns to hunt on a blind instead of being under total control, which we would expect at a field trial or a hunt test. But so that being said, it depends how that's defined. And even within that definition, there's probably only 20% of my clients' dogs that quote unquote handle. Most of them, I mean, a good day is if the dog sees the bird and goes and gets it and brings it back, and they're happy. Yeah. And if it does a double, that's gravy.
Hero.
Yeah.
Hero time.
Handling, not much handling going on.
Yeah, I used to tell people when they wanted to teach their dog to handle. Yeah, I hate to talk myself out of work, but I say, maybe you'd be better off with a coffee can full of rocks and throw it out there and get them close, because you really don't have any idea of what it, when we do teach a dog to really handle the drills and everything we go through, getting him to a back pile, then to a baseball, then to a big tee and a double tee, and starting all your handling drills, and then your water baseball and swim bys and all this stuff. I mean, all these are all drills before the dog even does his first blind retrieve. So people know to the extent that when we really teach a dog to handle what we do. And I think, like I say, a lot of times I just many times try to talk people out of it, saying, all this stuff is just, your money's going to go to waste unless you want to come out here all the time and see exactly what I'm doing and learn to do it just as good yourself. Otherwise, you're just throwing money away.
That's exactly right. In fact, I tell people that exact thing. I say, when you see a handling dog, when people see a true handling dog, everybody wants that. Yeah, I want that. I want my dog to do that. But then when they see what it entails, maybe not. So I always say, unless you're going to be committed to taking this to that level, it is a waste of money. Because the dog, even if I teach that, if you don't maintain it, the dog is going to lose it, and it's going to, the next season, it's not going to have it. I mean, it's going to be like it never happened. So you have to commit to the process. It's like the higher level a dog is trained, the more maintenance there is. And people think it's actually the opposite.
Right.
But it's like an athlete. If you're playing at a high level at whatever your sport is, to maintain that takes a lot of work at that level. If you're playing slow pitch softball on the weekend, I mean, what do you need to do? Not much.
Yeah. And also the more a dog knows, the more if the handler is not up to par, the quicker the dog learns that there's a double standard, and none of the stuff that my owner's saying even matters, because the dog pretty quickly can say, all right, I know this and this isn't right, and so you can go backwards even faster, because the dog goes, basically calls BS.
Yeah, I mean, if you have the type of dog that's looking to lead the show, and the handler, the owner, isn't on the same page as the trainer was, I mean, it's a no-win. You actually could hamper the training, because the dog learns, hey, I don't have to do what this guy's saying. And I've had guys buy field trial dogs that are so overtrained for what they need, because they realize if they get 20% of what that dog's capable of, it's going to be everything they need for hunting.
Yeah.
So you almost have to have the dog way beyond what, the owner is. Right. And in defense of a duck hunter, unlike maybe a trial person or a hunt test person, duck hunting is their hobby. That's where they put their time, and if they're going to spend any extra time they have, it's to learn about duck hunting. It's not necessarily about training the dog, so it's not their primary focus. Where hunt test field trials, that's your focus. Is it. That's your sport. So that's what you do. So it's almost unfair to expect a hunter to take it to that level.
Yeah,
they're just not going to do it.
And you do field trials and hunt tests. I mean, that's just a big financial commitment, and you're not gonna jump into that without being pretty serious about.
Very serious
about either knowing how to handle or your handler being good.
Yeah.
That kind of, then if we can back that up all the way, people talk to me a lot about force fetching and whatnot, and you've kind of got I used to force fetch pretty much all my hunting dogs that came in, but you've got a philosophy that probably saves time, money, angst, whatnot, everything as far as force fetching all your hunting dogs.
Yeah, number one is, I mean, we use the term force fetch, which is the term some guys that bring their dog in, they don't really know what that even is. I mean, they've heard it, and they say, oh, yeah, someone says your dog has to be force fetched. So they say, yeah, I want my dog force fetched, without really understanding what it is and how you go about it. But so force fetch, obviously, the end result is to bird delivery, get the bird delivered to hand each and every time reliably, and if not, to be able to reinforce that. So one of the first things I ask is, number one, is delivery to hand what you want? And I think it should be. I think for a lot of different reasons. If you have a cripple and they drop the bird and the bird gets away, you can't really do reliable doubles if they're not force fetched. They're dropping one bird to get another. So delivery to hand is important, and force fetch is the way you typically get delivery to hand. But I do have occasionally, I just had a dog over the summer that delivered everything to hand just naturally. He was, what I call a great carrier. He would carry anything and never drop it. So once I got the here command down and he knew he had to come right back, he would hold it, sit, and deliver to hand every time. Now, that's rare, but that's a case where just because everyone says you have to force fetch, if you have a dog that's getting the same result, then it may not be necessary. I personally have one of my own dogs that's a master hunter that obviously has to deliver to hand. She's doing triples and doing everything that they have to do at that level, that was never force fetched for a couple of different reasons. She's really sensitive and just didn't take to it. But carried nicely, delivered nicely. She will fetch it off the ground if she drops it, but isn't technically force fetch, which means I could apply pressure to get her to do it if she didn't do it. So I'm more open to force fetch is delivery to hand is necessary. Force fetch isn't always necessary to get delivery to hand. Always. So I always look at alternatives depending on what the guy's goal is. But my dog is an example of a master hunter, which is a pretty high level. If I would have force fetched her, probably would have never become a master hunter. And that's just that particular dog. Very talented, very trainable, very soft.
Very soft.
I mean, to a fault, almost to where it's a hassle.
Mm-hmm.
But yet, she was willing to do that. And I mean, if I would have forced, she's never actually worn an e-collar, electronic collar, which is unusual in this
Very
day and
unusual,
age.
yeah.
And electronic collar is a great tool. But this particular dog just did not
I
respond.
use it on my kids.
Yeah.
Works excellent.
Perfect. So yeah, force fetch or delivery to hand is important. Just don't get caught up in it. Not every dog doesn't necessarily have to go through the process of force fetch. Maybe 80-90% of them do, but if your dog's willing to do that without it, just don't throw that up. Or, that it's a possibility the dog could do it.
Mm-hmm. One thing I don't know if you ever noticed is I ran into this a bunch, and I called it the second dog syndrome, where people they remembered everything great about their first dog and nothing bad about it, and then they bring their second dog and they're going, well, my first dog never did, Flopsy never did this, or Flopsy always did this, and I never had him, and she would do this, or he would do that, and they now they've started their second dog, and they're coming to all these normal problems that we have with dogs, and they're forgetting all the painstaking steps that I know that I did with my first dog. I mean, I skipped no steps. I mean, everything was as thorough as could be, and I broke everything down. And then because I know I went through this, when I went to my second dog, it was, all right, you should be here, and you should be doing this, and now you should be doing this. Talk to us. Do you run across that as an issue with people, and trying to get them to bring their just their reality in check a little bit?
I mean, absolutely. That's people that have had several dogs. There's always the case of the one dog that was, the end all. And like you say, they don't remember. And it's funny because if I've trained the previous dogs, I have to remind them that, well, don't you remember this? And then they're like, oh, well, okay, yeah, maybe that did happen. And they forget all of the growing pains that go through that because they hunted the dog for 10 or 11 years after it was trained. And you remember all those good times. And you don't remember all the headaches that they brought into play. But probably the worst thing for somebody is to have the super dog for their first dog. I mean, whether that's a hunter or somebody that competes, their first dog is this phenom. So that gives you a false impression that you're a better trainer than you are. So then from then on, they're the dog. They think they know everything about dog training because it's like if you have a kid that can throw a 98-mile-an-hour fastball, and you think you're a great pitching coach. I mean, it's if you have a phenom, you have a phenom. Almost anybody could train a phenom.
Right.
Your job would be not to mess it up. So those people can be difficult because they think they know, and then they get your normal dog, and then they are frustrated.
Yeah.
They don't realize it actually is an effort, and it takes a little more than just the phenom doing all the work for you.
Yeah. If as far as phenom dogs, do you have a species and sexual preference?
we can't talk about that.
We can't talk about that.
I think this is the wrong.
No,
form,
we
and people
can't.
are going to get angry.
Wrong podcast.
Yeah, Dennis, tell us about your dog's sexual preference.
Most people, most field trial people, like the male dogs for a couple of reasons. Number one, they're a little more resilient usually, a little physically tougher normally. Again, it's not always, and then they're not dealing with going into season twice a year, and the time lost in that. So you probably see more successful male dogs, but probably from the hunting dogs, I probably do more female dogs. They can be a little more biddable. I have both, and I think it just depends on the individual dog. I don't really have a preference personally. My main thing is with the females is you have the going into season and coming into heat, and if you're hunting, that's a problem.
Yeah,
or could be.
Yeah. Breed preference?
Definitely Labrador.
Definitely Labrador.
Definitely Labrador.
We'll have to
I'll
make
even
sure-
be more specific. A black Labrador. And I tease my clients because obviously I train every breed, but by far there's more black labs in the competition world anyway. But they, I'm getting kind of, thought I'd never say this, but I'm getting a little bit fond of the golden retrievers just because their temperament is excellent. I actually have a confirmation golden, so a show golden in training right now, that I think I'd take that dog. And I would have never said that before, but it's, I mean, it depends on what you want to do. I always tell people it depends on what you want to do with your dog. A good hunting dog, any of the breeds, as long as it's a well-bred dog, is probably going to be sufficient. But on that note, a lot of guys want the top-bred field trial dog for their hunting dog, which probably isn't a bad idea, but they don't realize oftentimes in this day and age, it's like a guy that's used to driving a Pinto that has a Porsche.
Right.
And he can press the gas, but he can't make the turn. And they're just, I mean, it's crash and burn all the time. So with those dogs comes, I mean, it's a lot of horsepower. And if it's somebody that isn't used to handling that kind of dog, they're almost better off having a much mellower dog. You don't have the noise issues sometimes, the control issues. So it kind of depends on the person's personality. But not every field trial champion breeding is going to be something every hunter necessarily wants to take out to the duck blind.
Yeah. Chesapeakes. Have you had many of them under your belt?
I actually have 3 in training right now, and I have one client that's been with me for years that runs his dog in hunt test, and they are definitely a different breed. Though they have a reputation of being stubborn, and they are, but they're also they're physically tough, but they're actually often soft.
Mm-hmm.
So a lot of times too much pressure is put on them, physical pressure.
I agree.
And they don't really, they are physically tough, so they can fake you out to think, okay, but they actually don't, they respond better to a lighter hand a lot of times than just the big time pressure. And just because they're physically tough doesn't mean that they're not soft, and there's a difference.
Yeah, there is. One thing I learned about Chesapeakes, if you can show them exactly what it is that you want them to do, you can be sure that that's a behavior you'll never see again.
They are a different breed. I mean, back in the day, they originally, from what I understand, and you probably would know this more than me even, is they, back in the market hunting days, they were used, I mean, they needed a real tough, physically dog, and they used them to guard the boat.
Guard the boat. And
so your shotgun was still going to be there. I mean, if one of our labs you put out there, your boat and the dog and everything would be gone. And a Chesapeake. And so they have a little bit, that temperament is different.
Yeah.
Just try walking by a truck with a couple of them back there.
Yeah. You know what they call the water blind at the Chesapeake Specialty? Bay of Pigs. Now, if I had any Chesapeake listeners,
I was going to say, do you have Chesapeake listeners?
No, probably not.
Oh, not anymore.
Not anymore. They just turned the radio off.
This is a podcast, not the radio, Mark.
It's going to be the radio someday. Damn it, Jim! I'm only a doctor. Well, so do you have what percentage of dogs are yours are hunting dogs? What percentage are hunt tests? And you have a lot of people that just come out for the day.
Right. I take 20 dogs in max, and when I have 20 dogs in, probably 10 or 12 of those are hunting dogs. Probably 6 or 7, 8 are hunt test dogs, and I usually have 1 or 2 trial dogs if the dogs are capable of it. And I run the trials mainly. It's not it's my favorite thing to do, my favorite thing to train for, but I'm not one that's going to travel around the country running the circuit, keeping dogs with me for months on end. So when I do have a client that wants to do it and has a dog that's capable of doing it, and usually I have no more than a couple, 2 or 3 at a time, and my own dogs if I'm running them. Though I enjoy that, it's a whole different realm of training.
Yeah.
But it being the highest level, I enjoy it the most. It's just hard to get a dog that's capable of doing that. Hunt tests are a lot of fun too. Nowadays, a master hunter is an incredible dog.
Yeah, sure is.
I mean, you got to do incredible things, and it's a lot different than it was even 10 or 15 years ago. I mean, they almost have to be trained constantly, you know, to keep them up at that level. Where back in the day, when it first started, you could train on the weekends, kind of get them through it. But, I mean, unless you have a really super talented dog, you got to put in the time.
Yeah.
What all does that competition entail?
As far as the field trials?
Right.
The field trials are, I mean, obviously they have to pick a winner. So what you're taking, you may have 40, 50, 60 dogs running, and they have to pick a winner out of that. And almost every one of those dogs competing that day or that weekend is capable of winning. So they set up just crazy stuff. Distance-wise, 300-400 yards, very technical things that a hunting dog would never even have to worry about doing, everything from not running around the water to just highly technical stuff. It's almost something you have to see to kind of understand it. And even then, when you see it without training for it, it looks easier than it is. So it's kind of a whole different realm that very few dogs can do that are talented enough to do. And then even if you have a talented dog, there's a bunch of other ones running it almost just as talented, if not more so. So you really got to be committed to that. Where the hunt test is non-competitive, meaning if you have 50 dogs, technically 50 could get a ribbon.
They're competing against a standard. Not against each other.
Exactly. And I mean, at a master level, they may have a third qualifying any given weekend, and those all could be master hunters already, but maybe only a third of them get through that weekend's test. So they're extremely difficult. They have to do triples and blind retrieves and honor and some pretty incredible stuff. But Mark's dog could be way better than mine and just nail everything perfectly. My dog could struggle a little bit but still meet the standard. And there could be a vast difference between that, and it's the same color ribbon. So you can, again, it's very difficult to do at the master level, but I don't have to be better than Mark's dog in any given weekend. I can just meet the standard, and if Mark's dog is way above the standard, then
there's nothing extra.
There's nothing extra. Though I won't go into that here, but one of my Facebook posts at one point was very controversial. I actually said, what if at a hunt test we have one more series, the judges pick only 6 or 8 dogs, it won't take very long, and the top 6 or 8 that weekend, and we pick a winner. And after same thing as a field trial, they acquire a win and so many points, give them a master hunter champion or something. So you end up, people that have a super nice dog that don't necessarily want to take it to that next level of a field trial could say, hey, I want to do this and see if my dog can be one of the top dogs. And put an extra title on them. And so basically you have something above a master hunter, and you're competing at the end of the day. Did not go over real well.
So my idea for it was you had, in any hunt test, you had, say, a top 5 finisher. So you had, say it was 50 dogs entered, 15 of them passed and got a master hunter ribbon. The top 5 would get a certain, whatever you call asterisk, and to compete for the master national, you needed 3 top, along with your qualifying scores, you needed 2 or 3 top 5 finishes. That shows you, that shows you the dogs going into the master hunter, to the master national, aren't there just because they ran them 65 times and finally got the 5 on. They were able to get, they were able to be the cream of the crop a certain percentage of their time.
Yeah, and I think
that doesn't go over well either.
It probably doesn't go over well because there's dollars involved in that, from the master national, right? I mean, but I actually like the idea. I actually at one time thought there should have been, there's both 2 sides to this, but I actually thought maybe to get your master hunter title, if you get, if you run your senior, it takes 5 qualifications to get your master hunter test. If you don't have your senior title, it takes 6. So what if you run 3 or 4 years and you run 60 tests and you pass 6? Is that a master hunter? And it is technically, you've done it, and there's people that happens, and if you've worked hard, and there's nothing wrong with that, but that's vastly different than the dog that passes 6 out of 7. So could there be a standard of you have to be at 60% pass rate before you get your master hunter? So in other words, you have to, if you run 10 tests, you have to pass 6 of them. Mm-hmm. If you go 0 for 10, you're going to have a lot of ground to make up. So, of course, you may knock some people out then.
Right.
So
probably won't get people competing until they're really, really ready, because they don't want to stumble along at first and make it, I went 0 for 5 and now I got to go 10 straight.
10 straight, exactly. And it's probably, for the person that has maybe a mediocre dog that wants to play, maybe that's unfair to expect them to pass at that high a level. Mm-hmm. And like you said, maybe then they would never run it until you think you're really ready.
Right.
And actually, there's probably some dogs that I wouldn't run. I tend to run them as soon as I think they have a decent shot at it, even if they're not necessarily master hunters yet. Mm-hmm. Maybe you could pick up a couple of master legs before they're actually truly master hunters.
Right.
So I have a young dog under 2 now that we've been running in master for a while. Started at 1.5 years, and she actually at 1.5 years old was in training doing master hunter type stuff fairly consistently, and she went like 0 for 5, and she's probably better than most of the master hunters that I'm running. Mm-hmm. But she just had some weird stuff happen, young dog,
right?
And so I'm like, okay, I'm going to run her. But if there was that percentage, I would have probably never done that, because I could have waited another 8 or 9 months and been much more of a sure thing. But yet she'd already had her senior hunter, so we jumped up, to the next level, and she just passed her first one, actually. She's under 2, but she could have easily passed those other ones. Just little weird things happened, but I probably wouldn't have run her, and there would be no reason not to. She had already had her senior hunter. So, there would be some drawbacks to that. It's just I guess I have a problem with, if more from a breeding standpoint, I guess, if somebody is gonna I have a master hunter, so I'm gonna breed the dog, versus somebody that's just doing it as a hobby. So if it takes you 60 to get 6, who cares? You're working hard, you have your dog. But if you're selling puppies saying I have a master hunter and it took you 60 to get 6, is it totally forthright saying I have a master hunter? You do technically on paper,
right? But
is the people you're explaining that to, are they getting all the information as it is? So that's I think you just need to be careful in that regard.
Yeah. Speaking of Facebook posts, you and I both, we kind of, as we, in full disclosure here, Dennis is on a ranch here in Lodi, and he runs the kennel and the dog training pond and everything. And if you've seen of our goose hunting videos, that's kind of where those take place. So Dennis and I see each other quite a bit, so we BS about things. But it seems getting off the subject of dog training and into social media or social things, that the world seems to just want to burn itself down lately.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's something, I have strong opinions on it. And I try to be careful, because obviously, in this day and age, it's easy to offend.
I'm offended by you saying that.
Yeah. You said he was a millennial, didn't you?
He's a millennial.
Yeah,
That's
okay.
He's
got it.
Born offended.
You guys better be careful. I'm going to be offended a lot now that you guys are going to talk about social issues.
Yeah. Back in the 70s, I saw the movie Born Free. I think he saw the movie Born Offended.
You've triggered me again.
There we go.
So yeah, I occasionally will put, or actually probably more than occasionally, on my Facebook page, I'll put different things that I think that are important things that I, even if they may offend, that I think just for the overall good, that I think are good to be aware of. I'm not one of those people that put a lot of photos of my dog at the beach on Facebook. Most of it is something a little bit more serious than that. Not there's anything wrong with that, but I usually post something that sometimes I'll be reading something in the morning and it'll pique my interest, and I get this real inspired deal going. So one thing I've learned, though, is I shouldn't post it the moment I'm inspired, because if I wait till the end of the day, I wrote some of the things that I was gonna. It's probably good I didn't. So one thing I've learned is wait to the end of the day, and if I still think I should put that in there, I do.
Like you say, if you're mad, you should, before you say anything, you should wait 10 seconds. And
Exactly.
It's the same sort of thing. Well, I don't know how many things I type out and then delete. I go,
Yes,
you know what?
not a good idea.
It's just not a good idea.
In this day and age, they don't go away, right? I
Yeah,
mean, once you hit send or post or publish,
It's forever.
It's forever.
It's like herpes.
It's
Well,
forever.
it's amazing how fast that people will get on that. You see it a lot with the politicians. They'll post something, or celebrities a lot. They'll post something kind of
Stupid.
fueled by emotions, and almost, like an hour later after this backlash, they'll delete it. But people have screenshots of it.
Yeah, exactly.
The
You
video will be
as well
saved
own
off
it.
of
You
YouTube.
might as well own it.
Might as
Yeah,
well own it.
People get on that stuff really fast. It's amazing.
Well, I mean, they do. So you really have to be cautious, about what you put on there. But I have learned, because not everything that inspires me, I think that's just like right on. And then you post it and it's like, I'm not too inspired by that, So you got to be careful. But I'm also, it'd never be my point to offend, but some things need to be said,
Called out, yeah.
and thought about, and instead of everybody just getting into the big group think. And so some things you just make, and I'm for, if somebody has an opposite opinion, I'm good with that. I like to think things through and hear the other end of it.
Yeah, I do too. I mean, if your opinion or your side or whatever is so frail that you can't hear the other argument and come up with a good defense of yours, maybe you ought to look at your thing, or take a second glance at your side and wonder, all right, why am I getting all butthurt about that? Why can't I come up with a good defense? I just have to call him a name or scream louder than him.
Exactly. And it's tolerance isn't being intolerant to anybody that disagrees with your opinion, which some of the times the people that preach the tolerance, they're only tolerant if you agree with them.
Right.
Well, that's not tolerance, I mean, that's the opposite definition.
That's the opposite of
it's actually
the opposite of
hypocrisy.
tolerance. Yes.
So it's some things I think just need to be said, but I think when I write stuff, it's like, it's not necessarily to be a me against you thing. It's like, this is kind of makes sense to me, at least to me, and maybe worth thinking about, instead of just going with the flow of what someone's taught you to think about.
Well, one thing I've noticed, an unfortunate thing lately, and I don't know if it's just social media is. I mean, you look at all the different Facebook pages. There's a page for archery. There's a page for compound bows. Then there's a page for traditional bows. There's a page for light, fast arrows. There's a page for slow, heavy arrows. And everyone takes their toys or their opinions and goes off in their own corner. I mean, and you get so subdivided that everyone's just going out, taking their toys and going off in their corner and not playing with each other. And we get these things. So like with what's going on with Dick's Sporting Goods or Under Armour or all these things, people say, I'm not going to shop there. I'm not going to do this. I'm not going to do that. And then, and of course these stores maybe, I don't know if I say starting it by saying, we're not going to sell it, rather than having a discussion, it's like, we can't even have a discussion on it, because I guess if Dick's feels they have to have a discussion about AR type rifles, then they're really not serious about the gun issues. And if we gun owners have a talk about, okay, what's right or wrong with ARs, then we're not real Second Amendment lovers, and then people abandon you.
Right.
So it's like, can't we all just say, no, I'm not going anywhere. I'm just, I'm staying in the conversation. Let's keep, as long as we're sitting there hashing this out and talking with each other, we can make progress. But not making any progress, taking our toys and going into our own corner.
No, and we see that. I mean, everything is so divided. You know, politically, religiously, there almost isn't a conversation. I mean, it's just a big wall that's put up, and some people that I would have never thought, when things didn't go their way, you thought they were one way, and things didn't go their way, and I mean, the real truth of it comes out about. I mean, it's easy to be tolerant or, you know, agreeable when everything goes your way, but when things don't go your way or you lose, I mean, how do you handle yourself? And you still got to be able to be in the conversation without it making it be against me, against you. And some of the stuff, like with the Dick's Sporting Goods, and I have no idea what their situation is, but sometimes I question if the motives are financial more than some kind of big moral issue they're trying to stand up to. Like they're trying to make a point so they get certain people, or maybe they weren't even making that much money off a particular kind of. So we're not really losing anything, and we're going to take this stand because
meanwhile we're going to get all the soccer moms are going to come in, and we're going to sell 6 times Nike jogging apparel and everything just by giving up on ARs that we never sold in the first place.
So I mean, are they really taking this high moral stand?
Altruistic?
Exactly.
Or
it's kind
they
of
just
hypocrisy.
Going, we'll just use this for PR because we don't sell.
Right.
We don't sell the damn things in the first place.
And unfortunately, I mean, you see, and I have no idea if that was their motive, but you see so much of that, you become a little bit skeptical of it, as people begin to take sides. And it almost becomes ludicrous when the extremes get so out there that it almost doesn't even make common sense. I mean, it's just like the gun thing. I mean, how many of those type of shootings and others have been done with people that they never went through the background check at all. They just they stole the gun or bought a stolen gun, or, I mean, it wasn't like that was going to help you. A criminal's going to get the gun, usually one way or the other. This last shooting, he obviously it was a big deal that he went through that whole process, but how many times does that not happen? I mean, a criminal's not going to care if he's breaking the law by not.
Yeah. I mean, by definition, it's just like,
what do I care?
Yeah, what do I care if I broke the law getting the gun? I'm about to go break the law with what I'm going to go do the gun. So who really cares?
So, I mean, how many of them does that stop?
Yeah.
I mean.
And in that case in Florida, there was a lot of law enforcement and FBI breakdowns where they didn't follow up and everything like that. So, the conversation I'd like to have with the people who are for taking those guns away is, before we start taking away amendment rights, can we talk about some of the real cause of this and the real failures and of course no one ever meant for people to have ARs when they did the Constitution. Well, they never meant for us to have the internet. They never meant for us to have Facebook. They never meant for us to have the social media. They never meant for us to have iPhones. Yet all this technology has allowed our First Amendment rights to get carried away, maybe, so it's like, and no one's for banning Facebook, cell phones, computers, or the internet, even though it is used horribly poorly. People are killed over it. People's feelings are hurt over it, and no one's talking about removing that. So it's like, it's just I think some of the gun thing is just the real devastation that we see when a bunch of young children are shot up, and that's just a devastating, heartbreaking thing. But
I mean, it is, and if you're a parent of one of those kids, you can see how, okay, let's just get rid of all. You can see how your first emotion would be
if these guns weren't here.
Yeah, I mean, and I probably would have that same emotion when you're hit that hard. It's terrible. But you got to look at the bigger picture. That's probably not the main issue, like you mentioned. I mean, there was a lot of things that in that particular instance that could have prevented that if people would have been doing what they were supposed to be doing. So it was more than just a gun issue, though you certainly can see the emotion behind that. But
yeah, I mean, there is when your kid's been shot, there is no bigger issue.
Exactly.
There is, AR or whatever. There's
Exactly.
there is no bigger issue to you.
I mean, it's the same thing if your kid was killed by a drunk driver. I mean, that's going to become a major issue for you. People that drink and drive, you're going to want,
right, to see this never happen again.
And statistically, there's probably more people killed by drunk drivers than there are by guns, but because it's more of an acceptable thing that unless your kid was the one killed by a drunk driver, most people aren't that emotional about it.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I look at it both ways. I mean, if my kid was one of those that was tragically shot, I'd probably want to be done with guns at that moment, just because of the pain you're going through. But that doesn't necessarily mean that's the solution, the thing to do.
Yeah. Well, we've beat up dog training. We've solved all of mankind's social issues. Anything else you want to hit up? So, if people want to reach you, what's the best ways of reaching you to get some dog work?
They can go to my website, which is DennisHayreKennels.com. I have a Facebook page for Dennis Hayre Kennels, and then I have a personal Facebook page for just Dennis Hayre. Either one of those ways will work.
Okay. Do you want to leave a phone number or just have them hit you up on those?
Hit me up you can catch me on the website or Facebook, and my number's there.
Okay. All right, Dennis, thank you very much for coming in and spending some time with us, and we'll see what's barking around the corner for us.
Thanks. I enjoyed it.
Yep. Well, there you have it. Dennis Hayre Kennels. So look him up, and he truly does a great job with dogs. He's got whether you drop the dog off at the kennel for several months of consistent training, or whether you guys come out and do a daily thing, he can help you in whatever, private lessons, group lessons, or like I say, drop the dog off for 3 or 5 months, whatever you want to do, he can do all of the above. So check him out. And we thank you all very much for tuning in. Millennial, one more time, do you want to send us home with how to find us? MarkGroupieOutdoors.com, Instagram, Facebook. Did I say it all? Did I miss anything?
You missed a few. Keep trying.
Instagram, Facebook, MarkGroupieOutdoors.com, Pinterest.
We're not on Pinterest because I'm going to offend people by what I say here, so I'll just keep my mouth shut.
Okay. Tinder. Are we on Tinder?
You can be on Tinder, Mark. Would you like to have a Tinder?
Do I need it? No, I don't. I better shut my mouth.
I'm surprised you even know what Tinder is.
I have 9 children.
True. Yeah.
So.
I could see it. No, we're not on Tinder, but maybe we'll make a dummy account. And
there you go. And who better to have a dummy account than me?
You still haven't gotten them, though. You've got 2 out of 3 major ones. Okay. 3 major social media ones. You should know the 3rd one, because without it, nobody'd be able to watch our videos.
YouTube.
There you go.
YouTube. Check us out on YouTube. All our videos, all our podcasts, everything's there.
What about the podcast, though? Where can I find that?
At, I don't know, Mark Groupie ///////s.
That's not it.
No?
Don't go there.
Okay.
There's no telling what's on that website.
Where is it, Rye?
It's on iTunes.
Oh, iTunes, yes.
And Stitcher and SoundCloud, but I don't expect you to know those.
Okay.
But now you do, so there's no excuse in the future.
No excuse.
I think what this really proves is if Mark knows where on the internet we are, then certainly everybody else should be able to find us.
Come check us out. There's no excuse. Even a dummy like me can come up with 3 out of 6 ways of finding us. Thank you all guys very much for tuning in, and we appreciate all our listeners. Of course, we always love to have you chime in, find us. Love to have a conversation with you on Facebook. Check out our videos. Check out all the great stuff we got going on. Lots of original content, videos, posts, everything. And we will see you next time at Mark Groupie Outdoors, the podcast.